geometries, etc. And then obviously color and flavor, which can really help improve treatment adherence rates for different patient groups, especially pediatric patients. Now, there's also lots of different 3D printing technologies that you can use for pharmaceutical 3D printing, and I'm sure the other speakers will go into all the individual ones as well. So I won't talk about all of them, but I will use the rest of the presentation to talk about the ones that are here at FabRx, the work that we've been doing. So selective laser sintering is something that we've been playing with in the labs. So it's a powder bed fusion technique where you have basically a powder bed, so a reservoir platform which rises and a roller that pushes the powder across, which then a laser sinters in place where you want the printing to happen. And that's really good for a range of different printing formulations. So specifically oral disintegration, immediate release tablets are really good for selective laser sintering. You can get high resolution, fast prints, and as you can see here, you can print in different types of patterning as well, like Braille. There's also VAT photopolymerization. So there are a number of different techniques here, but just to stick to a few is SLA, stereolithography, and then digital light processing as well. So we've been working with these technologies where it's a vat of resin, which then utilizes photopolymerization to create the print with a laser. So we've been printing different geometries here with very high resolution, as you can see in image A, with a matchstick head there showing the size of the print, as well as some drug-loaded hearing aids that we published earlier in the year. So this was a very successful study. We combined two different antibiotics into hard and flexible resins from Kudo. We used a Kudo 3D Titan printer equipped with a DLP projector, a digital light projector onto it. And the prints were able to keep their mechanical properties despite having drug loaded into them. And there was release over 2+ weeks. So quite an interesting study there that we published. Something that people might find a little bit more exciting is stereolithography using a smartphone 3D printer. So we've been developing the Medimaker Lux, which is a relatively small 3D printer that uses the light of a smartphone and was published earlier in the year as well. So this used different combined warfarin with PEG-DA and some other obviously that photopolymerizing resins that you require. We were able to print different geometries of different sizes. Very exciting technique. And that was using a Hawaii phone and a Samsung Galaxy phone. So you can really see how that could be used in maybe hard to reach areas, or maybe even in the future patient homes for pharmaceutical 3D printing. Then there's the most commonly known 3D printing technique, which is very common with hobbyists. So fused deposition modeling, where you start with hot melt extrusion to create the filament, and then you 3D print the pill itself. So here's just an image of a polypill again. And so what we've been doing in this space is creating software to predict 3D printability using FDM and hot melt extrusion. So this is Medicine. It's an AI-driven software. And again, we published this earlier in the year. It used over 100 different papers with over 900 different drug delivery systems. And using that data, we were able to create the software where you input the excipients and the drug that you want to formulate to print, and it will tell you if it's 3D printable or predict, and it will tell you what 3D printing parameters that you should start trying. So this will help you reduce the development time and the costs required for formulation development. And you can access that for free at the moment at medicine.com. It's currently still quite an early stage, but we are still continuing to develop that. As well as just standard FDM 3D printing, you can also combine that with different 3D printing technologies or 2D printing technologies, so inject printing as well. So this can be developed for increasing treatment adherence rates. There's a nice little flag there, but obviously you can have all sorts of different patterns, and a data matrix as well for tracking, where you can input the patient details, make sure that it increases safety. Probably a more innovative type of 3D printing technology is direct powder extrusion. So this wasn't in the slide earlier on in the presentation that I showed, because it's still relatively new. And that's where you skip the hot melt extrusion step of fused deposition modeling. And this is just this is our printer here. And as you can see from the video, you put the powders, you premix the powder of the pill that you want to print, and you insert it into the hopper, and it's basically a mini hot melt extruder, and it will extrude the melted material for you into the pill form. And then finally, there's also semisolid extrusion, which we work with quite a lot. That's where you can print a paste for a hard pill or a gel, which is where you can form these chewable tablets, which are really attractive for pediatric patients or patients who have difficulty swallowing or lower treatment adherence rates. So with using semisolid extrusion, we were able to carry out the first ever clinical study for personalized 3D printed medicines. So this was for maple syrup urine disease, which we identified as requiring personalized medicine using 3D printing, because it had treatment adherence rates and it already needed personalized medicine for the pediatric doses. So this was for isoleucine. What we found was that the parents, so that this drug was compounded into quite large capsules. What we found was the parents would open the capsule and sprinkle it onto food or into their children's drinks, because they were finding it difficult to swallow the capsules. But this added additional problems because obviously you're not taking it in the desired form, and then also it was quite unpalatable. So FabRx combined isoleucine into chewable flavored gummies, essentially, so sweets. They were chewable, different flavored, and they improved treatment adherence rates depending on the flavor. So coconut was not a very well accepted flavor, but orange was, and that was probably because it was undertaken in Spain, where orange is obviously a more common flavor for children over there compared to coconut. And over 3 months of treatment compared to 3 months of the regular treatment, we found that there was a tighter control of the isoleucine blood levels after the 3 months. So overall, a very successful study. And from the back of that study, we were able to get funding to develop the MediMaker, which was the world's first GMP 3D printer for the production of personalized medicines. So there's a number of things that make it GMP ready. So just to name a few, there's glass and stainless steel in place where the material comes into contact with the printer, the formulation, sorry. There's also some security processes in place. So a QR code reader and a fingerprint scanner, as you can see in the image here. And there's also quality control mechanisms in place as well. So there's an inbuilt weighing scale, so you can calculate the blood load in situ, the drug load in situ after printing. And then one of the most innovative things about this printer is that it has 3 technologies in one. So it specializes in extrusion technology, but you can choose from fused deposition modeling, semi-solid extrusion, or direct powder extrusion, depending on the technology that you want for this specific tablet that you're printing. Now, this is a very simple plug-in, slide-on technology. So it's very easy to exchange the nozzles, which is obviously very useful as well if you want to clean quickly. So you can quickly exchange the nozzle for a new one to clean the used one. So there are 3 different cornerstones of pharmaceutical 3D printing, and I've already gone over a few of them, but we like to take advantage of all 3 of them here at FabRx. So like I said before, there's the MediMaker 3D printer, and we're continuing to develop more technology in that space. There's also medicine, like I've already mentioned, but we also offer formulation services if you want to go down that route with us. So basically, if you give us an API, we will develop a formulation that's 3D printable for you, and then do all the analytics involved that are needed. So thank you very much. These are just some of our collaborators. The picture is from the Abdul Basit Research Group, which we work with quite a lot. So Abdul Basit is one of the co-founders. So is Simon Gainsford and Alvaro Gayanes, who's also in this image somewhere as well. So they have actually recently been named the top 3 world experts in 3D printing, which is very exciting. They also publish regularly and have highly cited Researcher Award 3 years in a row. We also have an exciting collaboration with Gustav Russi that's already started. So they are the leading oncology hospital in Europe. and we're starting a trial with them for breast cancer, where we're using personalized dosages of a breast cancer treatment and anti-side effect treatments, and we're combining them to create a polypill. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anna. One quick question from me is, what is the business model for FabRx right now? Is it service-based, or are you selling the machine?
So we sell the machine and we focus on that mainly, but we do offer the formulation services on the side. And then in the future, obviously that this is quite early stage of the business. So in the future, things might change.
Yeah, awesome. The other question I have, you showed a variety of printing methods at the beginning of your presentation, and then ended up with 3 that combined in your printer. But what about like mass production? Said that you have a formulation that you really want to produce faster. I mean, is it kind of too slow if you just use extrusion based, or the kind of that in your printer rather than the SLA type or lithography based?
So they're faster than you might think. So if for the clinical study, we were able to print 28 tablets in 8 minutes. And then that also depends on the formulation, whether it's slower or faster. And especially with the exchangeable nozzle system, you can swap them out quite quickly for cleaning, for continuous printing. So you can imagine if you have a number of printers, you could churn out quite a lot.
Yeah. Is it harder to create an LCA based printer because there's so much chemistry going on, or is the regulatory too much? Because I would assume, yeah.
I missed the beginning of the question there, sorry.
Is it harder to create a LCA based printer because there's so much chemistry going on?
An SLA-based printer. So the trouble there with pharmaceutical 3D printing is that it's tricky to get biocompatible resins. So that's one of the reasons we've not really entered that space for commercial reasons, and it's only been kind of research-based at the moment.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think this is really exciting. Actually, I've known you guys even 5-6 years ago when you were still in the university stage about the FabRx, but I think you guys are doing so much more now. So congratulations. Thank you. Again, let me see if there's some QA box. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna address a couple, not all of them, because of time. So from Bautran, what materials are used as fillers for 3D printing that are edible?
Should I just jump in there? So for the extrusion-based printing that we kind of focus on, we specialize in, we try and use simple excipients that you can use for general pharmaceutics anyway, so HPC, HPMC, etc. So we like to, especially for the formulation services, we like to keep to things that are easily available, regulatory approved already, etc.
Okay, cool. And we have another question from Joanne Oliva. Do you have limitations based on the solubility or potential interaction between drug and material used for 3D printing?
There's definitely limitations there. So if you have higher solubility, it's definitely easier to 3D print. We have had issues in the past, but we like to say anything is 3D printable as long as you put enough time and resources into it. It's whether you want to do that or not. So if it's really low solubility, low absorption drugs, you might not want to put in the effort there compared to a high solubility drug that's easier to 3D print, etc.
Okay, we have a question from anonymous attendee. Says the rheological properties of formulation are crucial during printing process. Which viscosity measurements are mandatory to perform for quality control of 3D printed formulation? This is pretty specific.
To be honest, we don't actually do that for the commercial aspect of formulation services, etc. It's more of a viscosity measurements are really required for the R&D and the publishing aspect of things. When it comes to actually 3D printing, once you've optimized the formulation, it should be the same every time. And if it's 3D printing, it doesn't matter what viscosity it is really, as long as it 3D prints.
Yeah.
So we do have a varied viscosity range.
Are you guys only looking at printing modalities such as inject? And I'm not really understand this question. Nasli, maybe you want to just reformulate your question later. You can type it in again. So I'm going to move on to the next speaker. Thank you very much, Anna. That's an excellent presentation. It's good as a start learning already. The next speaker is Professor Xiaolin Li. Professor Li is professor of pharmaceutics in Thomas Long School of Pharmacy at University of the Pacific. He's also a fellow of American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists and a fellow of American Institution for Medical and Biological Engineering. But he also is an entrepreneur himself, and he's a co-founder for Triastek. So Professor Lee, I'll let you take it away.
Great, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you sign in. First of all, I would like to thank Jenny for including us in this event. The topic I'm going to talk about today is something we have been spending about 6 years. Let me see, I need to get this, yeah. Spending about 6 years to develop. And currently, I think it's getting into a stage. It's moving pretty well in terms of establishing an ecosystem by using 3D printing. So as most of you participate in this event, probably will have some idea based on the standard classification. There are 7 categories of the 3D printing technologies. And the technology I'm going to talk about, it's in the material extrusion type of the technology, and specifically based on the mechanism, it's related to the temperature. When you raise the temperature, it's going to be able to soften or melt the material, and then